Hello, everybody. This is Attorney Augustus Corbett, and with me I have.
Attorney Chloe Corbett, aka the Duchess of Justice.
And together we are the Defiant Lawyers. Each and every week, we bring you at least one legal analysis of some trending story having to do with politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy an unjust legal system and to nullify systemic racism. If that interests you, and I certainly hope it does, please like, share, subscribe, comment, click the bell. All of that helps us get this information out to a wider audience. We certainly do appreciate all your support. And we're going live. We haven't been live together here in quite some time. But today I do have the blessing of having Chloe with me, the better half of the Corbett and Corbett LLP and the Defiant Lawyers. And here she is with all her effervescence and her beautiful smile and beautiful spirit and beautiful face. Chloe, how are you?
I'm doing so good, Dad. We really have not done a live in so long. And some of our OG subscribers who've been with us from the very beginning, they know that we used to do this a lot. So it feels good to kind of bring it back old school, Defiant Lawyers old school, be live. But it tells you this topic is so important, why we decided why we needed to discuss this live questions from our subscribers. So yeah, I feel good. I feel great, Dad. I hope you're doing well today as well.
I am just trying to make sure everything is set up properly. We got a message that your microphone had some feedback, but I think I was able to get rid of it. Can someone let us know if there's any more feedback?
Yes, please let us know. We haven't done this in a while, so we're trying to.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
And we're going to wait and see whether or not we got rid of that. Okay, it's gone. All right, very good. But we're still going to wait a while and let more folks join. So far, we have about 75 people. Let's let more join.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope all of you all are having a good Friday, a happy Friday. So glad to have you all on.
Sorry, Chloe. I presume everyone knows why we're here. Something historic happened on yesterday, and we need to talk about it with our community. So I'm trying to.
It's almost an understatement. It feels like with what happened yesterday.
Yes.
So let your friends and family know that we're live. The Defiant Lawyers are up here. We're going to be discussing convicted felon Donald Trump. Any questions that you all have, put them down in the comment section. What are your thoughts too about his conviction? We want to hear from you all as well.
Yeah, go ahead as I just make sure everything is good on the back end here.
Yeah, so yesterday we got the news from the New York
let's
jury.
not start just yet. Let's still wait some.
Okay.
But just some small talk.
Yeah, it feels good to be up here live. You all may not see me as much. I do a lot of the litigation for the firm, and we have a busy June coming up. Several trials, a lot of hearings. So we're in the midst of preparing for this, as well as speaking with our community, with justice issues involving the Black community, with our Defiant Lawyer community. So, and let me just say this too. Thank you all for everyone who has subscribed to our videos, who have commented on our videos, who have sent us emails, who have called us. This is exactly the type of community that we wanted to start when we formed this channel, the Defiant Lawyers. And we have some of the best people around the world who are tuned in, who are fired up, who care about justice issues, especially as it relates to Black people. So we want to thank each and every one of you all for helping us to grow this community, helping us to grow this channel. And we have a lot in store for you all. I know that, Dad, you've talked about the BARS program that we've created, where we are focusing on helping Black children, especially Black boys, get their reading comprehension and reading skills up. So if you all are interested in that, there's previous videos where you can learn about that program. But yeah, so we just have so many exciting things in store for the rest of 2024 as well. Cannot wait.
Well, let's shout out a few folks as we wait for others to join. First, as always, our sister and compatriot, Sister Ave Aldridge. Sister Ave, thank you for joining us today. We are certainly honored to have you here.
Thank you for joining, Sister Ave, as always.
Also, Bishop Steve Campbell, thank you, Bishop, for being with us on today. A. Morton, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sharon Matthews, thank you. They're all letting me know that there's no more echo, so that's always a good thing.
Yes, good.
Darrell Russell, thank you for joining us. Dr. E.N.R. Larde, could be mispronouncing it. Please forgive me. Thank you so much. Miss Cynthia Poncetta, hello from Frisco. All right, we got a home girl here, Chloe.
Okay. Me in our
Yeah.
neck of the woods. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
DFW in the map, in the house.
Um, who else we got here? Wait, this is Wiegand. Sorry, I can't see the last name there, but hello, Wiegand. Thank you for tuning in. And Wiegand has good morning, so wherever she or he is, it's morning there. Folks are already commenting and asking questions, so just thank you to everybody who joined us for this live. And please, we haven't done a live in a long time, so if whatever imperfections there are, just please overlook them, and maybe the next time we get up here it'll be even better. But Chloe, I guess we are ready to go. We have 100 and, well, they're still coming in. Let's wait just a few more minutes.
Let's give
So
them time
far,
to come in.
yes. You all go ahead and put your questions up here so that we can get to them, as many as possible and as many as we feel comfortable answering. So, Chloe, what's been going on with you? You just mentioned the fact that we got trials and all that coming up.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of trials coming up. I've been getting ready for that. And they're pretty diverse trials too, Deb. On the criminal side, on the family side. So for those of you all who don't know, we do four main practice areas. We do civil rights law, police brutality, um, also cases if a corporation has discriminated against you on the basis of race. We do those cases. We do personal injury cases like car accidents. We also do family law, all types of family law, custody, divorce, all types of things, and criminal defense. So we have trials coming up in basically every one of those practice areas over the next 2 to 3 months. So that's what a lot of my time has been spent on that. I'm also looking forward to vacation in my birthday month in July, so can't wait for that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm ready to be on the beach somewhere with my toes in the water. But besides that, everything has been good. What about you?
Same thing. I mean, we do this together, so
Yeah.
ditto to everything you just said. I don't think folks understand that we are full time, sometimes overworked lawyers.
Mhm.
So we have to do what we got to do for our clients, and then we can get to our YouTube channel. We're hoping both of us, though, soon, or at least in the near future, to be able to give much more time to YouTube because things are just popping off like that. And, by the time we get to some of these things, folks have, but you all know to wait for the Defiant Lawyers to comment on this because we're going to bring you the receipts. We're not just jumping up here just to be the first to go. We're going to bring you the receipts. So you can always consider us to be like the late show. Okay, like Nightline. We're gonna have that opportunity to bring the facts together and uh, and the documents and all of that. And then as attorneys, we can give you a perspective on these things that some of the other commentators out here cannot.
And let me give you a shout out to that because you've really been holding down the Defiant Lawyers. I've enjoyed looking at the videos that you put up, breaking down what's going on in politics, just with injustice in regards to Black people. So I want to give you your shout out too. Thank you for doing that. And it's just so good to be here and to be able to have this channel with you. Um, Ever since I was a little girl, we've talked about these issues in our family around the kitchen table. So to be able to share the conversations that we've had about injustice, about civil rights with other like-minded people is just an amazing experience. And I'm so glad that we have this platform and to be able to do it. So I just wanted to give you that shout out too before we get started.
Oh, thank you so much, Chloe. Yeah, this has been a lifelong work of mine. I
Yeah.
mean, really, for the last 40 years, I've been involved in this space of civil rights and racial justice. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. I've been out here long, long time
Mm.
fighting the good fight, getting in good trouble, like John Lewis said. Okay, so Chloe, I think we have enough to get started. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have from what I can tell, 136 folks who are here, and we're gonna. There's an introduction. There's some things that we got to say, and then after we say those things, we will then begin to answer questions and respond to our community's comments. Okay.
That sounds good. Let's get it.
All right. All right. So first of all, even as a convicted felon, Trump can still be elected president. That's what we're going to talk about mostly today. The 34 counts, 34 felony convictions, Chloe, do not have anything to do with whether he is qualified to run for president under our Constitution. We'll have more to say about that in a moment. Now, we don't have a lot to say about the legalities of Trump's 34 convictions since we don't practice in New York and we don't know New York law. Additionally, the trial was not televised, so we don't have a lot of what went on in the courtroom. Now, people tend to make a whole lot of comments about things. They were not in that courtroom. They didn't hear what the judge admitted, what the judge didn't admit. They didn't hear the questions. They didn't see the jurors' reactions. They're just pontificating, if you will. And because we don't pontificate as lawyers, because we know what happens in the four corners of that courtroom is what determines everything, we're not going to do what other people do and just make a bunch of of comments based on our, what we think and so on, Chloe.
Yeah, the only thing that the jurors could consider are what came from the witness stand and the evidence that the judge allowed to be admitted. So what the attorney said, what Trump was saying out in the media, none of that is evidence. So just like my dad was saying, because we were not in the courtroom, we did not listen to the witness testimony. No one, none of the public, none of us know exactly what was admitted that led the jury to convicting Trump on these 34 counts.
And I've personally never prosecuted anyone. I've been a criminal defense attorney, civil rights attorney, etc., for my career. So I cannot even begin to talk to you about what Alvin Bragg and his prosecutorial colleagues were thinking and so on. However, Chloe was a prosecutor for the city of Dallas, great big old city of Dallas, where she tried multiple cases. And that does give us an edge in our criminal defense practice. So, because Chloe does have that experience, perhaps she can give us some perspective on what was happening in the minds of the prosecutors.
Yeah, so here in Texas, the main premise that the law says that prosecutors should do is seek justice. Now, we know a lot of times, unfortunately, that does not happen. We know that there are racial disparities in the legal system, in which is it here in Texas, federally across the country. But the mandate for prosecutors is to seek justice. And for District Attorney Alvin Bragg, you all have to keep in mind too that he is in an elected position. So he was chosen by the people in his district to be the top prosecuting attorney for that county, and so there is some politics sometimes that comes into play as well in the cases that are filed, in the cases that are presented to grand jury, in the cases that continue on in terms of what plea deals are being offered, etc. But from a prosecutorial perspective, what they are focused on is making sure that they can meet their burden to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Because keep in mind, guys, the burden that a prosecutor has in a criminal trial is the highest burden that we have in the law. In fact, it's so high that it's really not even defined. All the law really says is that it is extremely high. So what they're thinking is, okay, what witnesses do we have? What evidence do we have? Do we have the evidence if this person takes their case to trial and plead not guilty to get a conviction by the jury when the evidence is presented to it? So they look at it more from a more technical standpoint as a prosecutor. And what I love about being a defense attorney is our goal is to poke holes in their case, to put doubts in their case. We get to be more creative. We get to present creative legal arguments to prove that the state does not have the evidence to take our client's liberties, and sometimes life as well. So, in terms of District Attorney Bragg, in conclusion, there may be some politics behind it because it is an elected official. He wants to make sure that he's holding himself accountable to the people that put him in office. But in terms of legally, what a prosecutor does, because it's such a technical aspect of making sure that they can prove their case, they're really speaking to witnesses and really trying to make sure that they have a strong case if the case goes to trial. So that's kind of where how prosecutors think that. And one last thing too, people may not realize most criminal cases in plea bargains. 9 out of 10 criminal cases are going to be pled out. And sometimes that can go because the prosecutor knows they don't have a strong case. They don't have the evidence to meet their burden if this case were to go to trial. So for a prosecutor to feel pretty strong, they have to know that their evidence is pretty strong as well when the case goes to trial too.
All right, so let me just follow up with two things. As you said, Chloe, the prosecution has this high burden of proving unanimously that beyond a reasonable doubt that a person has indeed committed a crime, whereas the defense attorneys only have to raise reasonable doubt in the minds of one person, And I say that because apparently not one person on that jury found reasonable doubt. Not one person. Not one. Not one. That's all they needed. The defense didn't need to convince everybody, all 12 people, that there was reasonable doubt. They just needed one. And one who would go in the deliberation room and stand strong. Apparently, not one of them had reasonable doubt, and not one of them had reasonable doubt on 34 different counts. That tells me the case was really strong.
Yeah.
Despite what we heard in the media, especially Fox News, the case apparently was very strong. Okay, that's one. Two, Chloe, although certainly Alvin Bragg is certainly an elected official and he wants to be reelected, no doubt. There is still no evidence that he was motivated by any sort of politics, local politics, or national politics, anything like that. We'll talk about that in a moment, and that's certainly not what you were saying. But yeah, there's no evidence that he was indeed motivated by anything like that. In fact, I remember several people in his office resign, I think, because they wanted him to go forward with the prosecution much earlier than he did. But he said, no, we're going to make sure we got a strong case here. So it seems to me like he was being very judicious and was not being, pushed into doing anything by anything other than the evidence. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. You know, district attorneys, they have to think about their community and the people that live in their communities as well. So, he may have been thinking about his community, and even though there may not, some people may say this could be a victimless crime, but he still, as the top prosecutor in his community, he is instructed and has a duty to prosecute alleged crimes against people that could affect the community. So that's what I mean when it could be politically motivated. He's thinking about his district, he's thinking about his community. And, if he were not to prosecute Trump for these crimes, then how would that look with other cases that he has in his district as well? So I think that he played this out pretty well too. He was very low key. He wasn't really out in the media. It seemed like it was just by the book, and we'll get to this. It's a state case. It's not a federal case, and that's going to be important later too.
Yeah, you just said something so very important, and we got to move on. But you said something so very, very, very important. If the evidence was there, and obviously it was, and the prosecutors had that evidence, yet didn't prosecute Trump, how would they explain themselves to all, in his case especially as the first black DA for Manhattan County, I believe it is. How would he explain himself to the many, many, many African Americans that they prosecute? Why did Trump, a rich white dude, why did he not face his charges when Alvin Bragg's office prosecutes so many black folks? I think that is so. Thank you for bringing that up and expounding on that.
Yeah, it's important. It shows, at least in this case, there's not two justice systems. Trump, a rich white man, charges were brought against him, and he did what the law says and what the system says. He had a trial of his peers, and his peers looked at the evidence, listened to all of the witnesses, and decided that conviction was right in this case.
Good. All right. Now, today we're both criminal defense lawyers in addition to doing civil rights and several other things. And we have had clients who were convicted of felonies, and we know how serious that is for our clients, for their families, and for the attorneys. When I saw Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, standing there beside Trump, I've been there, we've been there many times, where the jury comes back with something that you don't, what we call that two-letter not guilty verdict, rather than that one letter, that guilty verdict, rather than the two-letter verdict, not guilty. And we just know, wow, their life is getting ready to change in a big way. Sometimes it results in them going to prison. Um, so I identified with Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, as criminal defense attorney to another criminal defense attorney. So we understand the severity and the seriousness of a felony conviction, and also we're Christians, so we don't relish in anyone taking a fall. We don't want to see harm on anyone, including Trump. We are strongly opposed to Trump, as anyone who's been on our channel for 5 seconds can see. Um, but it doesn't bring us any it, any joy to see an ex-president of the United States of America uh, get convicted of 34 felonies and still got 60 more to go. That doesn't bring us any joy at all. Um, we just wish. I know I'm speaking for me. Chloe speak for herself. I just wish he would go away. Quite frankly, I just wish, I've said many times, Chloe, you speak for you. I've said many times, I wish all these jurisdictions around the country would drop their charges if Trump would agree to never run for the presidency again. I would be in support of that, so that the country can just move on from all the madness and mayhem and chaos and so forth that he brings. But of course, we know that is wishful thinking. So we're going to spend the rest of this live talking about how all this relates to our nation. But before going on, what is your comment, Chloe, about my personal thing of just so that the nation can move on and we're not always for the next, I don't know how many years, dealing with Trump and his stuff? Suppose all the prosecutors said, yes, if Trump will um, agree in writing to never again run for the presidency, we'll drop all the charges. What is your comment about that?
I would agree with that in part that, but the one that I say he needs to really be prosecuted on, in my opinion, is the election interference case, because we have to put a strong showing to let people know that you cannot interfere with our election process. You know, one of the big things that we talk about on our channel is voting, getting out the vote, and why November is so important this year to ensure that Trump is not elected to office again. And the fact that, he has that election interference case down there in Georgia, I think that he does need to be an example that you can't call a state secretary of state and ask them to get you 13,000 votes or however many it is. We gotta show that the rule of law still stands, that our elections still stand, because we know that Trump and his supporters, that is what they are wanting to do. They are wanting to decay and diminish our the federal government, the processes that have allowed our country to go. So I would agree with that in part, that, but I do think Georgia, he do need to be prosecuted on
Okay.
that.
All right. So, yes, she was the former prosecutor. I've never prosecuted anybody, so we often have these conversations. But we're both now very much pro defense. And,
Yes.
so if, in fact, if we were representing Trump, and we never would, by the way, we would have done everything Todd Blanche did to represent his client, because in fact, we're ethically bound to give our clients a zealous defense. So we have represented people who really are just really pretty bad folks. And we still, give them a zealous defense. So we're both
Yeah,
very
that
much, yeah, go ahead, Chloe.
I was just gonna say, like, even in regards to Fonnie Willis in the video that I made, I said if in another alternate reality, if we had been representing Trump, we probably would have done the same thing if we found out that there was a potential improper relationship between the district attorney and the special prosecutor that she put in place to prosecute our client. So, in terms of that, I don't fault them for doing that because we have a mandate to zealously and ethically within the bounds of the law
That's right.
represent our client. And our client, they must get the utmost loyalty and duty to us. So there's some information that there's some type of impropriety that could affect our client at trial. Yeah, we probably would have done the same thing.
Sure. So, all that said, the two things that we feel are really important for the nation. Number one is to rebut this whole thing that's coming out of Trump's camp, MAGA, Project 2025, Fox News, the Republican Party, and even probably at this point some other folks, uh, is that Trump has suffered some sort of injustice. Uh, I just see no evidence of that whatsoever. I see nothing like that. And like you said, Chloe, this was a state trial. This was not a federal DOJ trial where Merrick Garland or Joe Biden had anything to do with it. This was completely the state of New York, Manhattan County, a local prosecutor in his office. And as I said, I trust the jury. 12 members of a jury heard all that evidence, and not one of them, not one of them felt like the defense was able to raise reasonable doubt on not one element of any of those 34 counts that Trump was convicted on.
Yeah, and the rhetoric that the Republicans are coming out with, Dad, about how this is unjust and is prosecutorial injustice. Not only is it rhetoric, at least in Texas, Greg Abbott is trying to make it law with taking away prosecutorial discretion. There were a lot of prosecutors here in Texas that were refusing to prosecute like low level drug possession charges, etc. And Greg Abbott, he is basically forcing prosecutors to try these cases. So not only are they talking about it, Dad, but around this country, very sleuthly and slyly, they are trying to implement it into law with taking away the discretion from prosecutors such as Alvin Bragg to bring these charges against Donald Trump. And like you were saying before, these are state charges. This had nothing to do with the federal government. This had nothing to do with Biden, with federal DOJ. This was a county in New York that decided to prosecute Donald Trump for this, and we have to make sure we make that distinction all the time because we know that that's the Republican playbook, Dad, to try to get people confused and mislead them.
And you pointed out a hypocrisy because on one hand you have these right-wing governors saying, DeSantis as well, hey, we don't like these liberal prosecutors who are letting folks just walk until it's Trump. And then they want Trump to walk, right? I mean, that's
Ooh,
a
that's such yeah, yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, you pointed that out when you said how Greg Abbott, yes, he's like, okay, no, you got to prosecute these cases. In Ron DeSantis' situation, as an example, he has actually removed African American prosecutors because of them, in his opinion, showing leniency. But when it comes to Trump, it's not law and order. its injustices.
Mm. The role of a district attorney is to enforce the law, not make it. That's a direct quote from Abbott, Dad. And it shows, just like we're pointing out, the hypocrisy that they have. Because Alvin Bragg, he did that. He enforced the law. He didn't try to make it. He was enforcing the law. He believed that Trump committed these crimes, so he prosecuted Trump. So you do it with that, but when it comes to policies that help Black people, such as not prosecuting low level offenses and these other prosecutorial discretion that prosecutors are doing,
Throw the
that's when they
book at
have
them.
issue with it.
Throw the book
Yes,
at them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Throw the book at them. Yep,
But not Trump.
but not Trump. Hmm.
And not white people who drive their cars into protesters and then shoot them to death. Don't throw the book at them either, Abbott. What do you do with them? You pardon them.
Mm-mm.
I'm just saying. So that's the first thing. Trump suffered no injustices here at all. There's no evidence of that, not a shred of evidence, not a shred of it. The second thing is, how can a person who has been convicted of 34 felonies still be elected president of the United States of America when, Chloe, we have clients who have pled to felonies, not many, because the one thing we do as attorneys, we fight hard not to let our clients become convicted of felonies. We fight hard. We don't want not one more young African-American male to be a felon. So we fight that hard. And I can say in 99.9% of our cases, we are successful at that. But anyway, how can Trump still run for president after being convicted of 34 felonies when some of our clients can't vote and many other things that we'll put up here in just a moment? And here's the answer.
The Constitution.
Constitution. Yeah, the Constitution says no person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained to the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States. That's Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 of our Constitution. And it essentially says a person only has to meet three qualifications. They need to be a citizen, need to be over 35 years old, 35 or more, and they need to have been a resident of the United States for at least 14 years. That's it.
Mm.
And that is the reason why Trump might still become the president of the United States of America on November 7th.
Yeah. And so that's why we still have to fight and make sure we get out the vote and make sure we let people know that, yes, he is a convicted felon, but under the Constitution, he's still eligible and can become president in November 2024. So we can't stop the fight now. In fact, this we've seen that with the what his supporters are coming out and saying, this could fire his base up. So we need to be fired up even more to try to stop him in November too, because he very well he's eligible to become president.
And the irony is, pursuant to the 13th Amendment, because of his felony convictions, he's a slave. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. This here, the 13th Amendment says, listen carefully, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Slavery, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except when someone has been convicted of a felony. Trump is being convicted of 34. Technically, under the 13th Amendment, despite him being a white guy, he's yet a slave.
Ooh, the irony in that.
The irony of that.
The irony of someone who in the 90s put out an ad against the Central Park Five, begging for them to be in prison. The irony of a guy who's made all sorts of racist statements, because of this conviction, this duly convicted status that he has. He's now become a slave again. Wow. Let that sink in, you all.
You said
This is
slave again. He's never been one, but he's one now.
well, he's yeah, not slave again. He's one now.
He's one
Maybe
now.
one in his mind, but he's one
Under
now.
the law, he's one now. And as a
Yeah.
result of that, here are the rights that he has lost, and here are the rights that many of our clients have lost. Yet Trump, and in fact, all of them could run for the presidency. Can't vote, can't own a firearm, can't get student loans, can't serve on a jury, can't get certain employment, cannot rent apartments. Look at the irony of that. He wouldn't let blacks rent apartments in his buildings.
Mm.
Can't get food stamps, can't hold public office except POTUS, can't get welfare, can't join the military, yet he can be the commander-in-chief of the military. Make it make sense. Can't get a professional license, can't get a passport, yet as president, he'll be traveling internationally if he were to win. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy that Trump is yet able to run for the presidency. It is absolutely insane. The framers apparently never contemplated a time in American history where a former president would be convicted of felonies. They never contemplated that.
And to think about that a lot of countries have travel restrictions against felons going into their countries. If Trump were to become president again, I was reading an article about this. What does that look like? If the leader of the free world, the commander of our military, the chief executive officer of our country has travel restrictions. When so much is going on around the world, we know what's happening in Ukraine, we know what's happening in Israel, other places around the world, and the restrictions against him. I mean, that's an embarrassment, and the fact that he has no shame either. I wasn't alive for this, but I know that Richard Nixon, one of the reasons why he stepped down is because he didn't want to be have a criminal trial against him. But yet Trump just has no shame. And it seems like no care for this country. Because when you put all of this into perspective, all of the rights that are taken away because he was convicted, and the fact that it can affect our foreign policy and things here at home as well, it would just be like, you know what? I'm in my 70s. Let me step back and recalibrate and just retire from public office. But he has no shame. And it's just sad.
And in addition to him not having any shame, the people around him are telling him, you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. It shows how low the GOP has sunken. Imagine, and I say that because just imagine if Barack Obama
Mm.
had even been charged with one felony or a misdemeanor or a ticket infraction, what would have happened to him? Or convicted of 34 felonies, what would have happened to Obama? And he was trying to run for re-election, or Joe Biden for that matter. So I have a suggestion. Why not just allow, my suggestion is, just a minute, is let convicted felons, after they've served their time, let them vote, let them own firearms, the one who are not dangerous, let them get student loans, let them serve on juries, let them freely apply for any employment after they've served their time and done their after they're off paper, the way they say it here, after they're off probation and all of that. Let them get jobs, let them rent apartments, let them get food stamps, let them hold public office. I mean, all of this. That's the best way to deal with this. Once a person has paid his debt or her debt to society, to the country, then restore their rights completely. That is the lesson here. That's the lesson. And maybe now white people will hear it. Maybe state legislatures around the country will begin now to hear this plea now that their chieftain is a convicted felon.
And maybe even more importantly, Dad, maybe Black folks will begin to see, okay, this. So we have a convicted felon running for office. Yet, I may have a brother, I may have a sister, a cousin, uncle who's a convicted felon who can't get a job, who can't vote, who can't get welfare, all of this. Yet we have this person who has a good chance of becoming president again. I hope that this uh, wakes up Black folks, and realize that we need to get people in office who are going to do what you just suggested, reform the system, work on changing the 13th Amendment so that slavery is completely abolished. We need like-minded people like that in office, and maybe this will highlight the disparity, the two systems between the rich white system and poor Black and minority system as well that applies to us. At least that's what I'm hoping for.
Very good. So now that we've said those things, we're going to begin to answer questions, those that we can, and begin to react to some of the comments and so forth from our listeners. Thank you all for being patient as we felt we needed to say some things in this live. So let's begin with A. Morton. She or he asked, I'm assuming it is a she, given that pretty flower there, but I could be wrong. Do you all think he will serve any time in jail? Chloe, what do you think?
Um, I don't think so, just because one, these are not, and again, I don't know New York law, but having been a prosecutor now, we're criminal defense attorneys. He hasn't. These are nonviolent offenses. I don't think he has a previous criminal record. So the judge is going to take all of that into account when sentencing. So the first part of the trial is done, the guilt innocence phase. We know he's been found guilty, he's a convicted felon. The second part is now the sentencing phase, and I believe that the judge set it for July 11th. So during that phase, Trump's defense attorneys are going to put on witnesses and put on people that support him, and basically try to lean on the judge on why he should get the leanest sentence possible. And the fact that I don't think that Trump has any previous criminal convictions and these are nonviolent offenses, he may not actually get jail time. He still may just get some probation or something like that. That's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking, Dad?
Um, I you know, uh, it's hard, Chloe, to be honest. I don't think he will either, but I certainly do think the prosecutors will probably recommend it.
Yeah.
Um, I think the judge will probably not do it, but it is 34 convictions. And as you pointed out so eloquently in the beginning, how would they then justify sending other people to jail who have just one felony?
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're going to do that. And it's hard to say. It's a great question. It's on everybody's mind. From my understanding, July 11th is just a few days before the Republican convention. So, man, I don't know if Trump is in jail, uh,
I'm sorry.
prison. I just don't know. I don't know.
It's not.
Yeah. I
Ooh,
mean,
the fact that this is even going on in our political season is just
yeah.
it's insane. It's so insane that sometimes you have to laugh.
Okay. Sister A says this man was well overdue to give an account for the things that he does. Yes,
And he still
absolutely.
has other pending cases as well. We know his Trump appointed judge in one case in Florida stayed the case, but he still has the one in Georgia, and I think the one in DC, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I'm reading through some of these comments. A fellow attorney says, as a lawyer, I've been saying since 2017 that the legal system would take him down, not impeachment or anything political. His track record in court is atrocious.
And the lawyers that represent him too, their track records are not that great either.
And oh, by the way, A. Morton is Fort Worth. Fort
Go
Worth in the
DFW.
house.
A
Arnold Arrington, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now, that's our original native state. So, North Carolina, Fayetteville in the house. In the house.
Hey, North Cackalack, as we say.
Gwen from Savannah, Georgia. That is where my father's family is from. Hello, Gwen. How are you? How are you? We may be related. I don't know. Hello from Maryland. Thank you for tuning
Hello.
in. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for joining us.
Blessings from Debbie Persons. Blessings back to you, Miss Person. This case was solid, so I expected the outcome. The defense was awful. Yes, you proved to be correct. Absolutely. Thank you. Hello from Hollywood, Florida. Man, I would love to be down in Hollywood, Florida right now, enjoying some of that beach down there. But thank you for turning in Black Circle Guns. Hello from St. Petersburg, Florida.
Hello, we got some Floridians up in the house.
Mr. Hill asks, how is it that convicted felons can't vote, but a convicted felon can run for president? That absolutely makes no sense. We just discussed that, Mr. Hill. We completely agree with you. And what we think they should do is amend the Constitution so that convicted felons cannot run for office. And we also think that states, and a lot of this is state law, should change their laws and restore the rights of felons after they've done their time. That's what I strongly advocate. Strongly, strongly. Chloe, we are in agreement about that, right?
Yeah, and it comes down to the lawmakers who are in the legislatures who are writing these laws. It all goes back to voting and who are in these positions of power to write these laws to reform, the fact that convicted felons cannot vote and all of these other restrictions that we talked about. It is those in Dallas, I mean in Texas, those who are down in Austin, who are in the legislature, who are writing these laws. So that's why we got to tell people, look, I'm a millennial and I know a lot of people that are like, well, I'm not voting, it has nothing to do with me. No, yes it does. Because if we had people in off if people were voting and we had people in office to make these changes, then we could see a positive outcome for our community. So let your friends know, let your people know whenever you hear, I'm not going to vote, it has nothing to do directly with me. Point these things out to them, these practical things that need to be changed, because it won't be changed if no one is voting and we don't get the people in office who actually care about these issues.
So, might you be saying that if we vote the couch, not only do that vote for the couch means that uh, that our voices are not heard, not only about the presidential candidate, but also regarding state issues like restoring people's rights after felony conviction? So, as I said in the previous video, then voting the couch is wrong on many, many different levels for African Americans, right?
Yeah, and it's just ignorant. It's completely ignorant. It's counterproductive, and um, we need to speak out. We need to speak out so highly against it, that because there's so many local issues on the state level, on the local level, school districts that really affect Black people every day in this country. But if we're not getting out to vote, then it doesn't matter. We should have more than a couple hundred people voting in our school districts, local elections, government elections, because those are really also the issues that really affect us on a day-to-day basis. I when I prosecuted, um, I prosecuted a lot of um, offenses from the transportation code and other city municipal codes that really have an effect on people every single day. So if we had people in office who were writing about the driving while license suspended. We know that a lot of people with a socioeconomic status cannot get their license renewed because they can't afford it, or because they are convicted felons. So those local small issues, if we had people in office that cared about it and would change the law, that would really be positive for Black people.
So don't vote the couch. It doesn't
Don't
hurt
vote the count.
Democrats. It hurts Black people.
Yeah.
Milton Morris says, I follow your blog and deeply appreciate the work that you find attorneys do. Thank you so much, Mr. Morris,
Thank
for
you.
those kind words. We're doing everything we can for our community. Beach girl. You know what, Chloe? I would consider myself to be a beach dude. I grew up
Yeah.
about 30 minutes from the ocean.
I love the ocean water. I'm a beach girl too, so I love that name.
So Beach Girl says he not only shouldn't be allowed to run for president, he shouldn't have Secret Service protection or any of the benefits that come with the next president. Okay. All right. Beach Girl says he shouldn't have any of those um, perks from having been president. Chloe?
Yeah, so she's basically saying he shouldn't have the perks of taxpayer dollars spending money on him as a convicted felon if he becomes president.
X, not next. I like that.
Oh, I like that.
Democracy over dictatorship. Yay for
Yes.
that. All right. I'm trying to get to some of these questions, comments, even though it be messed up, it'd also be poetically fitting for America if he got elected. Really? Wow. No. What about no? No, absolutely not.
I don't know what that person is saying, because people are not will potentially not vote or sit at home. Then we get what we deserve, but no, 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 no. That's why we have to do everything that we can to let people know why voting is so important.
Mike asked the same question we're all asking: how can a convicted felon become the president? Mike, hopefully you saw us just talk about it's because the Constitution just says a person can become president if they are a citizen, are 35 or older, or and has been in the country at least 14 years. Okay, if he's been convicted, why is he not on a bus somewhere on his way to do time like everyone else who gets convicted, who also plans for their next day? You know, that's a legitimate point, Chloe, because you know, when we are representing people and they're found guilty, um, they usually don't get to go away. You don't set their sentencing off 2 or 3, 4 weeks or a month or so. No, no, no. Typically, if the jury comes back with the guilty verdict, quite often the judge will remand that person into custody right then on the spot, right? And they are locked up until sentencing. And quite often, sentencing will go on the very same day if there's enough time, or the next day. So it's a good point. It is one of the perks I believe that Trump gets because he's an ex-president.
And it goes against, all of this quote unquote injustice that he and his Republican um, people are saying, that there's a bunch of injustice, but you're out on your, I mean, you're not in jail, when a lot of other people that we represent would be in custody right now as they wait for sentencing.
That's right. That's a great point. It goes against this. He suffered an injustice. This is a win for all the American people. I completely agree because it says the system worked.
It says that no one is above the rule of law.
A felon can join the army, but he can't control the army. What kind of sense does that make? I think everybody's sentiment is about the same. There are literally probably 100 or so different comments and questions. We are not going to be able to get to them all, but I'm going to get to as many as we can, Chloe, all right?
Okay. So, and while we bring up the next one, Dad, this sentiment that we're all feeling, again, we got to channel it into getting out the vote and getting as many people voting, so that he cannot become president, as well as, again, voting on the local side, state side, so that we can get these laws changed in regards to felons and getting the 13th Amendment amended as well.
I like this comment right here. I truly believe if Trump is offered $1 billion not to run, he would take the money and run. You know what? As one citizen of the country, I'd be in favor of that.
Well,
I
where's
mean, I
Oprah when we need her?
yeah. I mean, I don't. It's just wishful thinking. It cannot happen. Probably won't happen. I mean, Fonnie Willis down there seems to be really determined to get her shot, and Jack Smith seems to be as well. But I think it'd be just great for the country to have to just he just say, you know what? Yeah, I'll take a bill and I won't run, and that's the end of it. I, you know, but it'll never happen. So we're just wishful thinking here. That's all. Casual 891. I'm with you, but never happen.
I would be shocked if it happened.
You all are on the ball today with these questions. Apparently, the 14th Amendment means nothing, and I take that to mean that there's not equal. Like the 14th Amendment has equal protection under the law. Apparently, not so, because one person is being treated one way and others are being treated another way. So I take it that's what Mr. Hurt means. I don't know if I got it wrong, Mr. Hurt. Please write your comment, explain yourself, and I may bring it up. I think this commenter feels what a lot of people feels. Trump somehow is above the law regardless of what he does.
When in this instance, on yesterday, he was not. He was not. And we started this live by saying, look, we don't take joy in this or anything of that nature, but I do feel um that for once the system is working the way it's supposed to in terms of there not being two different legal systems, that because a lot of the people that we represent are black, poor, etc., and we see the system how it works with them and how it has worked differently for Trump. I mean, Trump got held in contempt of court 10 times and didn't go to jail once for it. Yet they're out here telling the media, telling their supporters how unjust it was. No, it wasn't. The fact that even like one commenter pointed out, he's not even in custody at this point. It shows that still being a wealthy white man has perks to it. Our legal system and different systems across our country too.
Thank you. Thank you for continuing to bring that out because it's extremely important and very, very true. Again, most of the time here in the state of Texas, if you plead guilty and it's the type of case where you are going to prison, you don't get you. There are some cases, there are some circumstances. Now we've had some cases where judge, will you please allow this person to report to jail after Christmas or something, or after Thanksgiving or something. But those are quite often misdemeanor cases. One case, not 34 multiple felony. No, that usually doesn't happen. But again, as you point out, it shows that he gets all these concessions.
Mom had a good question, Dad. A wonderful mother. She asked, "Do we think whether or not his appeal will be successful?" Because he's already said that he's going to appeal this decision. I think that's a great question.
See, you all, I am always caught between two brilliant women. Okay. Always. Always. And so you see here, I'm always having to be on my P's and Q's. But yes, what a great question. Go ahead, Chloe. I don't
That's such
see
a
it in the
great.
comments here though.
That's such a great question, Mom. And for those of you all who have not met her, who have not had a pleasure meeting her, to know her is to love her, and I get my fire from her. But anyway, um, I we didn't, because it wasn't televised, we didn't get to see a lot of the evidence and witnesses that were presented. But I think they're going to come from the standpoint of attacking Judge Marchand, and their allegations that he's like a Democratic plant and going after his daughter. Now, whether or not that's successful, I honestly don't believe it will be. There's kind of a pretty high standard, at least in Texas, with these appeals, with overturning what a trial court does, a district court does. Um, so I don't know, but I don't think it will be, to be honest.
I agree. Um, and New York is a pretty progressive state. Um, as you pointed out in the beginning, politics tend to play a part here. And I don't know if an appeals judge or a panel of appeals judges want to be New York judges want to be the judges who let Trump walk on a strong case. Now, of course, let's give a little context. What will happen? There will not be another trial.
Mhm.
The all the records and so forth in the case, the records, the documents, transcripts, all of that will be submitted to the appeals court. Some lawyers uh, may show up and offer arguments, trying to point out error and so forth, but no more evidence, no more witnesses, none of that. Those appeal courts judges will just look at all the record, including the court reporter's record. Uh, and they will decide whether or not there are any any errors from the judge. And as you said, Chloe, the standard is pretty high. Here in Texas, at least, it's an abuse of discretion standard most often, which means this: the law gives judges great discretion when they're making rulings in trials, which means that they have to really mess up in order for it to overturn, to be in order for the appeals court to overturn it. And even then, if it is a mess up, it has to be such that it would have changed the outcome. So that's a high burden. As Chloe said, you pretty much don't want to be trying to go to an appellate court trying to get something overturned, because it's an uphill battle. It's at least here in Texas, very uphill battle. And I presume it's pretty tough there in New York as well.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the record, Dad, the record is so important for us as trial lawyers. And people may watch Law and Order, watch these trials, and hear lawyers say objection, objection. We do that for a reason, because if we don't stay on the record, on the court reporter's record when he or she is typing the transcript, what we're objecting to and why we believe there's a legal error that's going on, then the appellate court would not consider it if our client loses and wants to appeal the case. So we always make sure that we protect the record, that if we believe some evidence is coming in when it shouldn't, or we believe that the judge is keeping evidence out that should come in, or if we believe that a question is improper, whatever we believe is improper and a legal error, we object to it and make sure that we get that on the record and get a ruling from the court. So if we are in a situation where we lose the case, then the only thing, like my dad said, the appellate court is going to consider is that record and what was objected to. So it's not just us just standing up and saying objection. There's a real legal purpose for us objecting at trial.
So Mad or Mod Audi or Audi, pardon my pronunciation, says, God will protect us from Trump. Please pray every day for protection. I certainly believe in prayer and believe that we should pray for our leaders. But I do think we also, in addition to believing in God's protection, we got to get out and vote. We got to do our part. Faith without works is dead. So we got to absolutely not only vote, as I said in my previous video, we got to double down. We got to not only vote, we got to take other people to the polls with us, right? We got to get folks registered. We got to show up in real big numbers. Because what I said in my last video, Chloe, is rather than voting the couch, the more effective way to deal with voting is to double down in our voting, triple down, quadruple down. In this case, so that we can hand Biden and Harris not only a victory in November, but a majority of the House, a big majority, and if we could do this, give them 60 senators, 60 Democratic senators, because then they could overcome filibusters. That's where the GOP has blocked the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, has blocked the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, has blocked so many different initiatives. The reparations bill could to establish a commission could become law if the House if the Democrats have the House and the 60 senators, then that would end up on Joe Biden's desk, right? And because he so needs our vote, and because he says and has shown himself to be interested in racial justice, then he would sign that. And if he didn't, he wouldn't want to hear from me. Okay? As much as we've been out here, saying the good things that he has done, and he has done a lot of good things. You all listen. Go to you can just Google White House fact sheet, White House fact sheet, or just Google what accomplishments has the Biden-Harris administration achieved for African Americans, and one of the first things that'll come up is the White House fact sheet, and it is literally pages of things that Joe Biden and Kamala has done for the African American community. When people say that he has done nothing for the Black community, it is someone who is lazy and hasn't done any research, or someone who's dishonest, or someone who is being paid by the Trump administration, the Trump campaign to say that dumb stuff, or it's a bot, a Russian or GOP bot, because the facts are there, the evidence is there. Just go do it. Just Google it. Just Google it. So we not only need to give them a re-election victory, we need to give them what they need to push the African American agenda through Congress, not vote the couch. That does nothing. We need Biden and Harris in there putting more progressive judges on the bench in these federal courts. Chloe, you saw the last video I did where I said basically when Black folks vote the couch, Trump and MAGA and Project 2025 and the GOP, they pack the courts.
Mm. Yep.
With right-wing judges. And I said yesterday that voting the couch has set back Black folks 60 years. Because first, 6 conservatives on the U.S. Supreme Court, that literally takes us back to the Earl Warren Court, which was the court that heard the Brown case. And that was over 60 years ago. That literally takes us back to that era. And we may not see the effect on the African American community of having 6 right-wing justices on the Supreme Court. It may take 5 years, but we will see it. We will see, and how they chip away at stuff, just over time. You got these folks like Edward Blum and Christopher Rufo and these other MAGA people who are going to keep bringing cases, civil rights cases, to chip away at the law. And Trump has already said that he wants to give police officers prosecutorial immunity, not just strengthen qualified immunity, which he said he wanted to do that too. So he wants to protect them not only in the civil court, but also make them immune from criminal prosecution. Mm. So when you vote the couch, you're voting yes for that. Now make that make sense.
Mm. And these federal judges, I mean, they have lifetime appointments. So well after Trump is gone, I mean, from the, well after he's gone, these judges are going to be in place and interpreting these laws. And that's so important because you can have a law in place. We still have the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, but how it is interpreted is so important as well. And the Supreme Court that we have now, the interpretations of these laws that have protected us for 60 years, it really is being slowly chipped away and making it harder for folks like us, Dad, to bring these cases against police officers that brutalize, kill people on the basis of race. make it harder for us to sue a bank who discriminates against a black customer, etc. So again, and it all goes back to who we have in office, who appoints these judges.
In fact, we have a case in court now. We represent a young woman. Her name is Leslie Strong. Leslie Strong. Listen at this. Miss Strong has a real estate business. She banks with Bank of America. And she sold a house, got a nice payment, the money was deposited in her Bank of America account. So she wanted to take some of that money and use it in another real estate transaction. So she went to the bank. She has had her account with the bank, I think about 15 years, I think. And she said, okay, I would like to withdraw this amount of money. And it was a good sum of money, over $20,000. First bank said, we can't do it. She didn't make a scene. They asked her a bunch of questions that they shouldn't have. But she didn't make a scene, and she said, okay. And they said, well, just come back tomorrow or go to another branch. So she went to another branch the next day. She again said, I'd like to make a withdrawal of this amount. And she verified her identity. She put in her PIN word. She gave them her ID. She did everything that the bank said she needed to do. And so she's ready to get her money, but the money's not coming. So she says, so what's going on? And they said, well, just hold on. Eventually a manager comes and asks stuff like, where did you get this money? Now, she's already identified herself. She's already verified her identity. She's already verified that the money belongs to her. Where did you get this money? How do you have this much money? Asking this young woman this, who's out there doing the right thing, has no criminal history, has been a customer of this bank for multiple years. They see that the funds are legitimate. They got all of that. And she's like, I mean, why are you asking me these questions? I mean, I verify who I am. The money is in the bank. I need my money. They wouldn't do it the second time. And instead of doing it, they called the police on her. So we took the case, and Bank of America is fighting like crazy to get this woman's case dismissed. We're going to bring her on the show and let her tell you herself. They're fighting like crazy. And the last thing they filed, they had the nerve to call what happened to this. And as a matter of fact, it was months later that she got her money, and she had to do it by wire transfer because she couldn't get it by showing her face. So she did it via wire transfer. And the last filing of Bank of America was that all that we said in our petition is just rhetoric. And that, she is just using her race, to try to get a windfall here. Yeah. And then when you look at the law, the way the law is written, right? Institutions like Bank of America and other branches know here in Texas, for example, that the law is written to protect the banks. The interpretation of the law is in such a way that it puts a real high burden on the person who know they suffered discrimination. And there is a specific law that protects Black folks from this type of discrimination. Yet The bank is not, well, you know what? That shouldn't have happened. We apologize. We'll make this right. I mean, she did what she was supposed to do. No, that's not happening. No, no, that's not the way they do. So having these judges on the bench who interpret these things this way, and it makes it really, 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 really difficult. Voting the couch. When you do that, folks, you are allowing Trump, MAGA, Project 2025 to put even more judges like that on the bench.
Yeah, I can't wait to get Miss Strong up here, Dad, so she can tell her story, so that people can see and hear what's really going on with these corporations, and the fact that the law is so strongly against people who bring these claims for racial discrimination. Like, you have to prove that it was, but for your race, um, that is why the discrimination occurred. So if the bank can say no, it was because she was a 2 year check holder, or no, it's because she was acting this way. I mean, they've just heightened the standards so much that it makes it really unfair to people who are discriminated against. Which, again, is why voting is important, because we need justices in office who are going to interpret these laws and still know that racial discrimination exists and must be protected against.
I think Mr. Collins here hits the nail on the head. There were Confederate soldiers, read your history, that said that war never was over. We're literally still fighting that war. We're literally still fighting that war. After the Civil War ended, there was Reconstruction, then there was redemption, and we've been going through a reconstruction, a redemption, a reconstruction, and a redemption ever since. I completely agree with that. Doc Brown says the donations to Trump campaign are coming in and strong. I saw one person on, I think, Roland Martin's X account, former Twitter. It was a black guy who said he had given everything on his card to Trump.
Well, DJ Academics, that I don't know if you know who he is, but
I do.
you know who he is.
I do. Yes.
He
He was
said
on
something.
Joe Biden's He was on Joe Biden's podcast for a while.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I know exactly who he is.
Yeah, he came out and said something about, I mean, I'm paraphrasing his tweet, but something to the effect that this makes me want to vote for Trump more, or something like that. I mean, just pure ignorance.
It's ignorance. That's all it is. It's pure ignorance. Now, Silverback beating on my chest. Why y'all so afraid of Trump? Why y'all so afraid of Trump? I'll comment, Chloe, and then you say what you need, what you want to say. Okay, so first of all, Trump has a history of racism that dates back to the 70s. It's a long history. I won't go over it. I've done so many times. Second of all, it's not just Trump. It's Trump, it's MAGA, it's Project 2025, it is the GOP, it is GOP senators, GOP governors. As the commenter said earlier, they all are still fighting the Confederate War. They are hell-bent to dismantle the Voting Rights Act, which they've basically done at this point. They are hell-bent on dismantling the Civil Rights Act, hell-bent on, Clarence Thomas just recently said something disparaging about the Brown versus Board of Education case in a recent voting rights, racial gerrymandering case out of South Carolina, where they basically allow South Carolina to keep these 6 conservatives to keep a voting map that heavily favored the GOP. Um, it is uh, 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 giving Trump another opportunity to continue packing the court with right wing judges. Um, oh wow, I could go on and on. It is basically a reversal of all the gains that we have been able to obtain over the last 60, 70 years. And they are not, Trump and his entourage, his supporters are not ashamed of it. One of the most racist slogans I've ever heard from a presidential candidate is "Make America Great Again." Again means that it is looking back towards something. And when you look back in American history, as it relates to African Americans, you only see Jim Crow. Jim Crow includes sharecropping, segregation, convict leasing, lynchings. And if we go back further than that, what do we run into? 250 years of slavery. So when he says, "Make America great again," when was it ever great? I presume they're saying it was great when black people were segregated, sharecropping, that whole era, even enslaved. What else can they be talking about? So Donald Trump is an existential threat, not just to African Americans, but to America. We have seen him do all sorts of things to try to undermine this nation. Donald Trump is interested in authoritarianism, in establishing an autocracy, a dictatorship, which is why these convictions are very important, because they say to him, no, you're not above the law. You're not going to set up a Putin-style country here. You're not going to set up a North Korea-type, Hungary-type system here. No, that's not going to happen to this country. And if you don't believe me, go watch the video where I showed GOP conservatives who support most of what Trump does and says. But even they said he's a danger to this country. So I'm not just saying this as an African American trying to protect civil rights, but as an American who is not interested in seeing this man and his supporters take us back and establish some sort of, again, some sort of authoritarian government that's based on white supremacy. I'm not interested in that.
Okay. You read them down, Dad. I mean, honestly, I think you put perfectly um, what the issue is, the existential crisis that Trump brings, like just like you said, not only to African Americans but to Americans as well. And the question I will put back to that person is, why are you not concerned? Why are you not concerned about the country that you're living in, the protections that you have now being taken away? So that's something that you need to examine on your own. Why that's not a concern for you if it's not.
So this person had asked, are you going to say why? You just keep saying he shouldn't be POTUS. Why? I just answered you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Claude, there's no way we can get to all of this. But hold on. Rain Love, super sticker, $10 from Rain Love. Lemon character, doing a victory dance with Marcus in his hands. Am I
Maracas.
reading this right, Chloe? What is this?
I think maracas aren't they the things or something? I think I don't know, but thank
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 you.
you, Rainbow.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much. We appreciate the love.
we
We
appreciate it.
appreciate the love.
I did see a comment. Someone said that our governor here and Trump is just as bad as 45, and I agree.
Say it
I
again.
mean, I saw a comment. Someone said that our governor here in Texas is just as bad as 45,
I agree.
and I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
And in Texas, there's no term limits um, for governors, so there's no telling how long he can be in office and the damage he'll continue to do to the state.
I got to address this. Obama was the worst ever. I got to address that. Wow.
Yeah,
That's just stupid on its face. I mean, we're talking about, first of all, where do I even begin? We're talking about a man, Obama, has not has no criminal history. First of all, okay. We're talking about a man who's been married once to one woman, two children by that woman. We're talking about a man who, in fact, whoever said that may have insurance based on Obama's signature, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. We're talking about a man who was in office 8 years with absolutely no, no, no scandals. Not one, not a half one, not even people within his administration. Okay? Um, he was a great president. And I'm just old enough to remember that when Obama came into office, Chloe, the country was about to collapse economically. Okay? Was just on the verge of collapsing economically. Jobs we were bleeding jobs, I think to the tune of 1 million a month when Obama came in office. He turned that all around and started creating all kinds of jobs. Okay? He saved the big three automobile companies, Chrysler, Ford, and GMC, General Motors. He saved them, gave them money, and they all paid their money, but he saved the economy. And as a matter of fact, when he left office, he handed Trump a great economy. And then Trump took credit for it. The accomplishments and what he couldn't get done, it was because Mitch McConnell and the whites in the GOP basically made it their business to fight any and everything he did, even if it was good for the country. So, you're lying. That is a lie. Obama was the worst. That is a bold-faced lie.
the worst ever when we had Andrew Jackson, Andrew Johnson. I mean, all these other presidents, um,
Slaveholders.
slaveholders. I mean, come on now. Um, I see that we got another super sticker from Derek Searles. Thank you, thank you. He donated $20. He said, "Worth so much more to our people." Thank you.
We got another one from Rainlove for $5. Rainlove, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're doing, there's so much here. Got a couple
There,
of trolls.
there's a comment that I want us to address too, Dad, before we get off. Someone asked, and I forgot who it is, but they basically
Hold
said
on,
that,
Chloe. Hold on. One more. Wannabe Mystic,
oh,
$5 super chat.
thank you. Thank you. Someone was saying that under Biden, gas is going up, food is going up, etc. And we've talked about this off camera, Dad, about the price gouging. Do you want to take that?
Please go ahead, Chloe. Let me look through these
So
comments.
yeah, so there's been a lot of, we've seen on the media news stories, inflation, inflation, inflation. But what people don't realize is that the corporations that be, they are doing price gouging. They are intentionally raising the prices of food, of gas, of other necessities. So it's not necessarily inflation that's linked to the economy. It's the fact that we live in a capitalist society, and companies can put their prices at whatever they want, and a lot of times they do it in order to get more profit for the top 5-10%, and the rest of us feel it. So it is something that is independent of Biden or whoever is in the top 5-10%, trying to keep their profits, trying to keep all of the money at the top, and then the rest of us feeling it.
So it's price gouging, not inflation.
Exactly.
Derek Sears, super chat, $20. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Mr. Sears. And as you said, Chloe, he said worth so much more to our people. Thank you. We appreciate your support so much, more than you can imagine. There's so
Also,
many comments here.
yes. Also, someone gifted Derek D'Souza a membership. D Brown 7733. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I see that here. So what does that mean, Chloe? You all, I'm the old head up here, Chloe. What? Explain this to me. What does this mean?
So so now Mr. D'Souza is now a member of our channel, and he was gifted that membership by another member.
I
So
didn't even know you can do that.
thank you for doing
I didn't know you could do that. So
that.
thank you very much for that. Absolutely. Okay, so we're coming to the end. My pleasure. Yes, thank you so much, D. Brown. Thank you so much. I mean it. I really mean it. Really mean it. This is a labor of love for us. Sometimes we got all these cases that we're doing and so on, and we have to make time to get to our community here on YouTube, and to do the videos, and things are popping off and popping off. And let me say to you, Chloe, you thank me for holding things down. And let me thank you, because Chloe is our chief litigator. And because sometimes she is focused on those cases, that does enable me to shoot a video, while she is doing the court related stuff. So we're a partnership, and I appreciate and thank you
With
sincerely,
me.
Chloe. Yes.
And I'm curious if there are any topics that you all would want us to tackle in the future, in future videos. Go ahead and write them down in the comments too. Any issues that you want us to analyze, let us know. We want to hear from you all.
And I love it too, Chloe, when the community, a lot of times the trolls will come and make comments on the videos and even up here, and the village start dealing with them. A lot of
Oh, they be
times I don't have,
stepping in. Ooh.
yeah, a lot of times I don't have to say anything. Like the village is talking to you, man.
You don't want
That
the villains to come after you, so you better come correct, all right?
exactly, because they know this, man. This foolishness what you're talking about. I,
Child.
what's amazing to me is that black people supporting white supremacists. That just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. The next video I do, I'm going to show a video. of this guy who's just ranting and raving, a black dude. And it's just crazy. I when okay. All right. Anyway, Chloe, we're at the tail end here. There's the comments and questions are still coming in. Somebody said Tycho wrongful convictions and how it happens and who does nothing about it. That's a good one. That's a good one. In fact, it's the reason why we started the Lazarus Law and Justice Project in the first place. That's a good one.
Yep. Someone also said, should Biden have packed the court when he had a chance?
Oh, it's a great question. Listen, Biden is packing the court. Biden has put over 200 people on the court. He has put like 58 blacks on the court. Trump didn't put one black person on the court. Biden has put 58 on the court. He also has nominated the most next to the Supreme Court. So let me explain this. The district court, and then above it are the circuit courts, and then they are right under the Supreme Court. And it's the circuit courts that tend to make the law quite often because so few cases get into the Supreme Court. And of the circuits around the country, Biden has put 13 African American women on those circuits. So he is packing the court. He's trying to balance out what Trump did. Mm-hmm. But Trump got so many through that over the next few months, I'm hoping that Biden will get more on the federal bench because, as Chloe said earlier, man, when we have to fight these cases, having the wrong judge, you kind of, and I'm not trying to disparage any judge at all. But there are some judges who just don't see civil rights the way we see civil rights. That's it. In their minds, they're being fair when they deny this or that, dismiss this or that. But sometimes they just don't have the perspective that we have as African Americans. And so, again, it's not to disparage a judge. It's just the reality of the fact that there are many folks on the bench who are not amenable with civil rights. Mm-hmm. So also, there's been a lot of layoffs, but the stock markets at all-time highs where part of the game is where part of the game is this. What instead of a lot of layoffs, what I'm seeing is a whole lot of jobs. I mean, the job numbers have been just amazing under Biden. In fact, unemployment, Trump loves to say, and especially Tim Scott lies and says that the lowest unemployment rate for blacks was under Trump. That's not true. The lowest unemployment rate has been under Biden, and it was the month of April, the year 2023, when the unemployment rate for blacks was 4.3%. Now go look it up yourself. Just go look it up yourself. So a lot of layoffs. This economy is strong, and it would be even stronger were it not for, as Chloe explained earlier, for the price gouging by these CEOs. And there isn't a thing Biden can do about that, as she explained, because we are a capitalist free market society. If he were to step in there and said, hey, you need to bring your prices down, then the same GOP who gets no bling for this would be definitely trying to protect their rich corporate donors from government overreach. So it's just amazing to me. Biden gets it from both sides, from black folks who don't understand all that he's done, and then the GOP who's on the other side blaming him if he does anything. Well,
Someone asked
Chloe,
about passing.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say somebody asked Michael Bowen, how about passing an amendment against price gouging? Well, that would be something for Congress to do.
Right.
Some legislation for Congress to step in. Congress writes and makes the laws, makes federal legislation. So if they really cared about this issue, if we had people um, in the House of Representatives, in the Senate that cared about this issue, and starting with the House of Representatives, write the legislation, then it goes up to the Senate and finally lands on President Biden's desk, then that's something that we could do to address price gouging. But again, it's the people that is in office that's determined by voting.
That is exactly right. Yes, thank you for saying that. It's not up to Biden. And if he were to do an executive order against price gouging, and I'm sure he does all that he can, but if he were to do something like that, here comes the GOP trolls.
Oh, you're trying to regulate too much. You're trying to mess with our free markets, blah, blah, blah. The same rhetoric that they always use.
Meanwhile, blaming him for inflation. Wow. All right, this is going to do it. We're going to end it here. Thank you all so much. Chloe, you got parting words?
Vote, 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 vote. Vote, 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 vote. If if nothing else, we got to get out the vote and we got to bring people along with us. As you all saw, even though Trump is a convicted felon, under our Constitution, he's still eligible to run for president. He can still be elected as president. And the only way that we're going to stop him is not by staying sitting on the couch, but by getting to the polls, by doing what we can to educate our own communities, our own family members, whoever we have influence with and contact with, to let them know that no, what happens in November not only affects us as a whole as a country, but can affect you directly as well. So, voting, Dad. Those are my last words. And thank you all for joining us. We haven't done this in so long. There were some technical difficulties at the beginning, but this has just been so fun and nice to engage and interact with our community, Dad, and these comments. So this has just been great. A great way to end the work week.
There's nothing to say after that. Thank you, Chloe.
Bye,
Peace, love.
everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.